Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Oli. If this is your first time, then welcome. And if it's not, then welcome back. So today I'm just gonna tell you guys a little bit about basically my eczema healing journey, because up until now I've made quite a lot of sort of practical, just showing you a little bit like how I cook and just sort of little snippets day to day and there, but not really told you exactly how it's been for me in terms of how I managed to essentially cure, or at least I'd say 95% cure my eczema, which I've had for my entire life. So I just want to tell you guys exactly how it's been for me, my sort of experience sort of going through the healing process. So this was a year ago that I decided that, well, just over a year ago that I decided I was going to completely stop using steroids. And at this point I had essentially been using steroids for 10 to 15 years. I never used the very, very strong ones, but I think the reason I decided to come off them completely was because I knew already about the dangers of steroids, or at least prolonged steroid use. And so I'd always been wary about it, but I'd never really done anything about it. And I've always kind of accepted the fact that I was just a person who had eczema and that was just how it was going to be for the rest of my life. A year ago I decided, no, I'm going to devote time and focus to trying to heal this and trying to cure myself of this naturally, because for me conventional medicine hadn't really helped me at all. They had always just come back with the same thing. They said it's to do with dry skin and there's nothing you can do about it, you can't cure it, and here are some steroids. If I ever did go to a doctor and suggest maybe trying an alternative way of trying to cure it rather than just steroids, I'd always be shut down. They wouldn't even entertain the conversations. So then I decided to kind of take things into my own hands, and that's when I decided, right, I'm gonna try the plant-based diet, plant-based vegan diet, firstly, and that's what I did. So over a year ago, I went vegan and I went overnight completely like that. And I talk about this in one of my other videos, but I didn't have a hard time transitioning because I had such a strong motivation to sort of go onto the vegan diet. So at this point, it was mainly just about the diet. I was still using a lot of creams. A lot of my friends always make fun of the fact that my handbag was like a pharmacy because I had every single different type of moisturizer and cream you can imagine. So at the beginning, like I said, it was all to do with the diet and the vegan diet, and it was okay for the first 3 days, and then the 4th day I went into what I suppose is called the healing crisis, which is essentially just a massive flare-up that you go through initially when you first start onto this journey and when you first stop using any type of steroids. For me, this was particularly intense around my lips. I've always had quite bad lip eczema, and it was very bad on my neck. Other places I had it are pretty much sort of quite common areas, like here in the fold in your arm and the fold in my legs and my ankles and a few other places. Pretty much it's sort of dotted around all over my body, and it was pretty bad. I think the worst was the facial eczema. I couldn't really, speak or move for a good week, and it was during the winter as well, so my skin became very dry. But I stuck with it. I drank lots of water, did everything I did. I can put a link up to my healing crisis video if you guys are going through the same thing. That was pretty intense, but then I managed to get over it, and then sort of once the facial eczema got a little bit better and my body sort of calmed down a bit after that initial flare-up or healing crisis, whatever you want to call it. From that time, so it was November till about Christmas, it was very dry. It wasn't necessarily super inflamed, like the very red, but it was very dry. And I was still using a lot of moisturizers, and if you use moisturizers chronically, just as you use steroids, after a while they just don't really have an effect. And I was drinking lots of water and doing all the right things, and I was just trying to stick with it, and I was trying to just get through these first few months. But anyway, so then I got to Christmas, and I decided to kind of not be vegan for Christmas Day, because I'm Swedish and our Christmas dinner is just a huge spread of meatballs and sausages and those kind of things. So I told myself, okay, it's fine, I'm just gonna not be vegan for like a day or two and then it'll be okay. My skin got terribly bad over Christmas. I was also drinking over Christmas, as in drinking alcohol. In the new year, I went on holiday, and it was absolutely like it's like paradise on earth, the most gorgeous, the most beautiful island I've ever been on. And the first 2 or 3 days, my eczema was so itchy. It was so itchy. We had a trek at one point through a rainforest, and honestly, I don't think I've ever been that itchy in my entire life. It was so intense. I thought I was gonna like scratch my skin off. It was so bad. I didn't really know what was going on. But then after a few days, my skin started to clear up, and I think, you know, salt water, being in the sun, being a lot more relaxed, all these things. When I got back from Guadeloupe, it was a little bit more improved, and I think that I really needed that as a bit of motivation, because I thought, yes, okay, this is great, I'm going on the right path. And then in the new year, I decided I was gonna go completely very, very extreme. I wasn't gonna use any chemicals. I was gonna go completely natural. I was gonna do all the detoxing and all the cleanses and all these kind of things. I was being very, you know, very careful about what I was eating. When I didn't really like eating out, I wasn't eating any oils, I wasn't eating anything. It was pretty much basically just eating fruit, vegetables, some grains, some beans. That was pretty much it. I also went to go see a naturopath at this point, and she, on top of all the other sort of the vegan stuff, she sort of specialized in Chinese medicine. So she said I should be avoiding a whole bunch of other different foods. She said I should be eating seasonal foods, and it all got a little bit obsessive and a bit, you know, a bit much with all the different diets and different food. But at that point I kind of was so into it that I just focused all my attention to my diet and what I was doing and exercising and all these kind of things. So I did that for a good, I'd say 3-4 months. I did a couple of cleanses. If I'm totally honest, I've said this in one of my other videos, I'm not a huge fan of detoxes or cleanses. I also didn't find that they really helped my skin in any particular way. Some people do, so this is just my opinion, this is my experience, and everyone's journey and everyone's experience is going to be completely different. So you don't have to, you know, follow anything that I'm saying. So I kind of stopped doing the cleanses after a while. I also found that the cleanses and the sort of not eating properly and the being very obsessive over food, it was kind of leading me down a path which was not very healthy for me mentally. But at the time I was so into it, so I just kind of continued, and my skin was okay. Again, it's very hard because your skin doesn't get better straight away. And I was doing that thing that I think I do now recommend that people don't do, which is I was analysing the state of my skin a lot. I know it's very hard not to, and I did the same thing, and it's very easy to say these things in hindsight. Unless it's a very severe and obvious reaction, it's not an upward trajectory in any way, shape or form. So you kind of just have to accept that and just kind of, you know, just know that it's going to go up and it's going to go down, and it's not just about the diet. It's quite an important thing to remember. So then I got to in Paris we had a very, very long winter. I think we got to April or even May, it was still freezing cold, and my skin had sort of stayed in the same state, as in it was pretty bad. I had managed, some bits of it was sort of getting a bit better. It was still pretty dry, but that was my main thing in the winter. And then all of a sudden it became summer. There was no spring, there was no transition in there. There was no sort of gradual transition into a warmer temperature. It just went bam, and then it was over one weekend and it was boiling hot. It was bizarre. For some reason, then my skin made a total switch, and it went from being very dry, not that inflamed, it was kind of in a sort of steady state of a little bit crap, but then it became bam, like super red and super inflamed and very, very itchy and really bad. It came out pretty much everywhere. It was, and then it was pretty much that sort of really bad red state for a good between May and I'd say end of August. So in the summer as well, I also started eating a lot more raw foods, and then I started researching a lot into raw veganism, and I was going into that, and again it was sort of leading me into sort of a slightly dangerous path sort of mentally. This is a topic I could talk about in another video, and I think this is really an important topic. So I was eating loads of fruit, loads of vegetables, all these kind of things. And my skin wasn't getting better, it wasn't getting better at all. In fact, I'd say it was even getting worse. And I think in hindsight, I was doing two things that was making it worse. Firstly, I was slathering myself in coconut oil because that's what I had been using in the winter and it had been okay. But in the summer, I don't know what it is, it's the oil and the heat and something, it just made a massive reaction in my skin. And I think a lot of people, from what I know now, is they have reactions to coconut oil. So this is something that I have learned in quite a difficult way, I'd say, during my journey, is that just because it's natural doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be good for your skin. Another thing that I was doing, which I think was making it not particularly good, and this is something that I realized when I came back to the UK and I got a blood test and they told me that I had certain deficiencies and also I had too much blood sugar. I told my doctor about the fact that I had been following almost basically more or less a raw vegan diet, and I was eating a lot of fruit. And my doctor said, you can't eat that much fruit, it's not good for you, it's also really bad for your hormones. At this point, I hadn't had my period for a good 6 months, so my nutrition was off. After I'd been to the doctor and she tested my levels and she told me, you know, this and that and these kind of things, I sort of snapped back into reality and I realized that, you know, the way I was eating, it was too extreme. It wasn't good for me both physically and also it wasn't good for me mentally. So I kind of got back to normality, and I felt once I had decided this and I decided I was going to be a lot more relaxed, I felt a lot more mentally relaxed about everything. It took, I'd say, about 2 weeks at the end of the summer, sort of the beginning of September, which was about 2 months ago, and my skin healed up so rapidly in a space of, I'd say, a week to 10 days. And from having had it all over, extremely red, extremely painful, it cleared up. It was honestly miraculous, and I've heard a lot of other people have had the same experience. You know, they've been following a diet for a while and nothing's happening, it's going up and it's going down. All of a sudden it'll go rapid healing. From having been covered in really red, angry eczema, a few patches that were so bad, I thought that the skin would never be normal again. It went up and it went away completely. It's almost miraculous. So in hindsight, what I think changed in this week to 10-day period where my skin rapidly got better, there was a few different things that I did differently. Firstly was the fact that after having been to the doctor and they checked my levels, they had said that I had low vitamin D levels, chronically low vitamin D levels. I started taking quite a strong or a good dose of vitamin D every single day. I also I took a few extra supplements for balancing my hormones. Again, on the doctor's advice, I started eating a lot less sugar and a lot more sort of carbs and a lot more fats. I started relaxing about the fats, I started relaxing about the oils. I don't care about eating oils anymore at all. When before last year I had been freaking out about oils for some reason. Again, it's just this idea that's going around that apparently oils are poisonous for you, and like, yes, there are good oils and bad oils, but not all oils are bad for you, and they're certainly not what's causing your eczema. It's just not. Another thing that happened was the temperature and the season change. It had gone from very hot, it's got cooler, and that really helped my skin. And the third thing that happened was that I moved house, so I was kind of in a very much a transition period. I was moving from my parents' house, moving from Paris, all these kind of things. It was all very up in the air. And I moved into this flat, and immediately things just sort of settled down. So when I say cleared up, my skin is now completely clear all over. I don't have any eczema on my arms or my legs, anywhere like this. I have a few tiny little patches, but other than that, like it's nowhere near where it used to be. I used to have it, remember I used to have it on my eyes, I used to have it everywhere, but now it's just like, it's such a crazy, and people do, some of my friends and family, they look at me, they're like, wow, like that is a really amazing transformation, and I really feel it as well. And I think it's not just the transformation from the outside, but you do definitely go through sort of like through some kind of a mental transformation as well. When this happens, you get into such a great place, and all the sort of hard work that I went through before, it is totally worth it, I'll tell you that. So I really hope that that's at least a little bit of motivation for you. Oh, sorry, my camera ran out of battery. But basically what I was saying was that, so what I think has happened, my theory now is that the diet and everything I was doing last year was basically laying foundations for my body to get into the healthiest state it wants to be, and at that optimal level of health, that is where my skin would clear. So obviously, like, doing the diet and everything else that I did last year was super important to sort of lay the foundations. But to take me to that sort of next level of healing, the other things needed to fall in place. So for me, it was the environment and the temperatures, the seasons, the stress levels, and just tweaking a little bit of my diet. So there were a few things that were a little bit off. And once all these things were all to place in together, that's when I think that your skin just completely heals. So I hope this was inspirational. I hope this was motivational. If you guys are going through the same journey or sort of midway, you don't really know where it's going, then all I have to say is like, stick with it, persevere, be strong, stay positive, and you will get there. If I can do it, and believe, trust me, I have had eczema my entire life. If I can get my skin to this state now, then you definitely can. And let me tell you, it is so worth it when you get there, and you'll be so happy you did. If you have anything else that you want me to elaborate on, if there's anything I've touched on in this video, please do leave a comment down below. I really want to share everything I've learned this past year. So please comment, and I will see you guys very soon for another video.